Everyone's trying to get a read on what happens here. Do they try to buy? Could they become sellers? Do they stand pat? What do they do with McMahon and Lawton, et cetera? What is your read on when we might get an answer on that, and how much is actually on the table for the Leafs in terms of both ends of the spectrum, buying and going in and trying to make it, or being, full-blown sellers and realizing this isn't your year?
I think, crazy as it might sound, both ends are very much still open as possibilities. And look, the Leafs have 11 games, including tonight, before the deadline. There's a lot of time between now and March 6th, but there's not a lot more that the front office is really going to learn about this team before the big decisions need to be made. I think they're going to let this 5-game stretch before the Olympics play out. Barring something unexpected, I don't think they're going to make any moves in the near term before that period of time. And then they're going to assess over the break, what the best path forward is. Let's look at both ends of what you're projecting there, Hayes. Buying, I don't think will ever be that aggressive. That's just my feel. I don't think we're going to see them, if it leans towards buying, do anything crazy. I mean, we've been over this. They don't have tons to sell or to buy with, and I think there is probably a little reticence about how much they can really do to this roster right now. Wow. The selling end could go a little bit more dramatically. They do have pending UFAs, but that's going to take them likely losing a bunch of these games between now and the deadline. And so I really believe it could go both ways, and they're just going to wait and see and make a call probably over that Olympic break and enact in the 10 or 11 days before the deadline afterwards.
Yeah, and look, I think all that is fair, but you also have to really analyze the next 5 games, right? Starting tonight against the Buffalo Sabres and where you're at. Because as we've talked about, and you guys shared yesterday on the show, I mean, if this trip doesn't go well, the answer might be right there that Brad Treliving can't turn away from, right? I mean, if it doesn't go well, what do you do directionally? And where is that pressure coming from? Is it coming from above the general manager's office? It feels to me like, and you guys weigh in on this, it feels to me like this team needs a spark. But as players, does it have to be a meaningful piece, or can you just make a trade where you get a depth defenseman to bolster what you've got, and that's a shot in the arm?
They already got their...
Yeah.
But I brought that up yesterday.
Yeah.
Does that count, though? Well, he's been good for them.
Grabbed him off waivers, and he's been good. But what if you're just nibbling around the edges and you find somebody in the league and it just adds to your group?
What's
exactly right.
I don't know. That's what I understand, because we talked about this yesterday. But what if somebody just slides in that helps everybody, helps the process along? That's the thing. It's not going to change. Auston Matthews still has to be the best player. When Willie's healthy, he's got to be the best player. John has to get his game going consistently. McMahon, all of those guys.
Yeah.
But maybe it just helps the balance on the back end.
And you don't have the assets to do anything bigger than that, potentially. If you did, and there was that player available, and we know that Treliving is still, eyeing a defenseman. Well, if there was a piece that he could bring in, he would have done that by now. There's nobody available that moves the needle. That's why I say from a player perspective, sometimes it's just a little injection, just a little bit of a difference maker. Because, look, the coach has done everything, right? He's had blow-ups on the bench in the first half. Well, that didn't seem to get a message through. He's called out William Nylander publicly. All right, can't blame Willie now. He's not playing. He has a leadership meeting yesterday. Mm-hmm. Went well. Everybody's focused. Everybody knows what they have to do. Okay.
Let's see tonight.
Okay.
Message got through.
Yeah. One thing they did is they fired the
power play guy.
Power play coach. Yeah. They got a spark out of it.
At what point, though, and CJ, you can jump in first, Dregs, we can go around the table. Can they no longer live in a world where they don't have assets? And that's where I wonder if sometimes you got to take advantage of acute moments in the schedule to accumulate those,
right?
Even though it's not comfortable, and you look at it, you might be able to trade some pieces and get back in the game in the summer if that player comes up. Yes, the right shot defenseman isn't there right now. You don't have the assets anyway.
No.
But if you decide I'm going to trade player X, Y, and Z, now I have them and I can get in the game in the summer. There's only so many opportunities, CJ, where you can accumulate assets. And the trade deadline is one of them. And I know it would be uncomfortable for the 25-26 season, but it might be in the best interest for the 26-27 season and beyond for them to simply use this deadline, not about wins and losses right now, but finally restocking the cupboard so you can get back in the game a little bit.
And if, CJ, that is the scenario, how does 34 factor into that? Like, does he... No, I'm not talking about him exiting stage
You're not
left.
saying them trading him for the asset.
No, but I'm not. I'm asking what would his thoughts be on a punted season? Like, that's got to be a question asked.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure he would share the disappointment of others, but I will say this. My impression of Auston Matthews is, I don't think they need to do anything and be really gentle around him. Like, I think he's still very committed to being a Leaf. I think he loves being the captain of this team. Obviously, he's been front and center here in a lot of conversation in the last few days. But, I don't sense at all his commitment waning. And in fact, I think if they were making decisions that made sense, that they were, if it's properly messaged to some degree in terms of what the plans are, like, he wants a chance to win too. And I'm sure, he's sitting there feeling a lot of the things everybody is. Like, the numbers don't lie at a certain point, right? We're more than 50 games into this season. The Leafs have rarely, to their credit, they did have a great stretch after Christmas and into early part of January. But other than that, most of this year, they have not looked the part of what they expect to be, which they started the season thinking they're a contender. I think the truth is staring them in the face. Maybe they can save it here and change some minds, with a hot finish right before the Olympic break or what have you. But honestly, I think if we're being honest, that they have to be looking towards at least a soft little retool, maybe add some of those assets you're talking about, Hayes, and not with that idea they're blowing everything up, but just basically taking a small step back with an idea of trying to take a few forward starting next year.
And be okay with having uncomfortable conversations, right? Brad Treliving was willing to do that last year, not to go down the Marner path yet again, but you talked to Mitch Marner about waiving his no move at the time because you acquire Mikko Rantanen as part of that process. All right, now we're all in. We're all in one here, and we're going to go, okay, it didn't pan out. And now you're in a completely different stratosphere if it doesn't play out the way that Leafs Nation is hoping. But don't be afraid to go to Morgan Rielly and go, we're coming to you in the summer. You're protected by your trade coverage, no problem if you want to wait. But, we're having this conversation now because it can't just be about managing the asset of Bobby McMahon, who's an unrestricted, or what you do with Scott Lawton, who's a pending unrestricted. Have uncomfortable conversations, which I think they have to be and will be willing to do in the time.
Don't you think everything should be on the table if you are heading down that pathway?
Yeah.
Regardless, there has to be, I don't even think it's just plan A or plan B. I think you have to kind of throw everything out there and go, okay, what does this look like? Because these managers, as you guys know, talk all the time.
Yeah.
So there might be a call out of left field that goes, I really like that player. Oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that gets percolating, and then a deal comes together.
That's fair.
And so do you, both of you, CJ and Dregs, like, is the chatter there? Like, are we going to see something, or are they kind of waiting until after the Olympics to see?
Are you talking on a bigger picture?
No,
because I think it's important. I mean, obviously, it's up to the Leafs to figure this out. But you'll notice, we all interact with Leaf fans all the time, that it's like, well, you just got to blow it up. Just get rid of these guys.
Yeah.
I don't see that.
I don't see that.
And I don't, I think it's important you just said what you said, CJ. Like, Auston Matthews, and there's always been this concern. Well, he's been in the playoffs every single year of his career.
What about Willie?
Well, Willie, possibly. Maybe you trade him.
No move clause.
Yeah, and then maybe that's a conversation you need to have to really spark something
in
different.
the offseason.
But they have some good pieces here on the NHL team. They got 3 goalies. They got to figure out what they're going to do there. You have Auston Matthews, you've got Willie, you've got Nyes, you've got them locked in. You know what they are.
Yeah.
Yes, it will be uncomfortable. Yes, it sucks. It's on the GM to pitch it and sell it to a guy like Matthews and say, listen, it may not even be just an offseason, maybe 2, but we want you here for the long term, and we're going to make it work. It might be 2 years down the road.
Dude, he's got 2 years left on his contract.
So be it, though. Again, Boston just didn't. Pasternak didn't just say, get me out of here because you unloaded everybody. He said, all right, let's figure it out. McAvoy, all right, let's figure it out. There's other examples in the league where they had to reset and retool, and that guy didn't say, I want out of here.
And why is it so awkward or uncomfortable for people to talk about the reality of 34?
It shouldn't be.
Vancouver just went down the same path with Quinn Hughes. You don't think they wanted to keep their captain long term? Of course they did. But they got to a place, 2 years out, by the way, where they believed and knew he wasn't going to extend for a myriad of reasons in Vancouver, which are all his own. 2 years out.
Yeah.
So find that out, because what Vancouver got in return for Quinn Hughes, that's a significant package.
The Kings
right?
I thought it was unbelievable.
Now, that's a blow-up, though. That's the thing. Like, they're awful.
If you're getting into the offseason and we're willing to have those type of conversations, why do you take 34 out of the mix?
No, I'm not saying that, Tregs. I'm saying, and to that point, hey, I'm going to be honest with you. This may take 2 years. Might take 3. Are you in it? Are you a Leaf for life or not? Because I can't
out of respect, that's what you have to do.
Yes, I can't guarantee you we're going to retool this in one offseason or whatever, and you're a cup contender this time next year.
Yeah.
Are you in or not? He may say, I don't have the stomach for that. Then it opens the door to a completely different chat.
I agree.
But if he's like, I'm the captain, I'm a Leaf, I'm here, let's figure this out. And if I have to win in 30-32, let's do it. Then that's a completely different avenue you can go down in terms of what you can do.
I think it's fair, though. CJ, you weigh in. I think it's fair. The one thing that should be brought with all this is the lines of communication. Auston Matthews is the captain. He's their best player, and he has been for how many years has he been here? 9? This is year 9?
This is 10th year. 10th year.
So 10th year, and he's got a couple more left. This is a decade plus that he's put in. So he's pot committed. He's invested.
Yeah.
So these conversations, whether they're difficult or not, you can include him in it, at some level, because he does move the needle. He is a star player. I've said this all along. We were looking at the coach, we're looking at the GM. If the best players play to their capability, maybe they're not, in this situation, consistently. They've been banged up this year. Goaltending, you haven't had a full roster. When's the last time they've had a full roster?
Now, Tampa would say, come take a look at us.
Hold
and
my
look
beer.
what we're doing.
Exactly.
There's a lot
Tampa
of
would
teams.
say that.
Go
CJ,
ahead.
what do you make of
CJ, get in there on this.
Well, I mean, look. I can only go on the history. First of all, I think there's an active dialogue between Auston Matthews, his agent, the team. Like, I don't sense any issues there. No. And this guy signed a year out the last time he could have been a UFA. Even when he was coming in an RFA, like, they got that deal done well in advance. As much as I think people wanted to link like his birthplace and just assume he wants to play other places, I just think the history shows that's not the case. He's mid-career though now. Like, he's where McDavid is, except McDavid's been in the last 2 cup finals and not one. But like he's got to the point where he's won an MVP, he's won some goal scoring titles. He wants to win the Stanley Cup. And so I think as long as he feels like he's on a path where that's a possibility for him in Toronto, I don't think there's going to be an issue. Again, this season is not great for anybody. The Leafs did not expect to find themselves here. That's from ownership to Keith Pelley to Brad Treliving to Auston Matthews and everyone else on that roster, Craig Berube. Yeah. But I just think that they may, especially if this, like tonight's game, it sounds crazy. I think it's a huge game. Sometimes we build up games that don't really deserve building up. Like, whether or not they can at least get one win on the back end of this homestand, go out on the road and get some work done, because to me, their season is hanging in the balance in these next 5 games. If it doesn't go well, and then they have almost 3 weeks off, the conversations that happen during that 3 weeks behind the scenes are going to be pretty stark in terms of the direction of the team.
Yeah. Listen, it's going to take some salesmanship, right? Like, about the plan and how you're going to execute it and where you're going to take
who? It's the plan is sitting right in front of you. What are you going to bluff it and lie to yourself?
Well,
and then you're going to have that team. If you want to lie to yourself, we've seen it with Phil and Dion. Oh, we're going to compete. We're going to be good, and you're not. So,
yeah, I hear you. I guess what I'm saying is, if that is a reality and it's set in at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment right now, the way this is going, can't win a Stanley Cup, and I think that's safe. They might make the playoffs. They don't feel like a cup contending
This team is not winning a Stanley
I agree.
Cup.
But I'm saying, if you're player X in that room, let's say it's Matthews, who would be obviously he'd be the guy they'd want to talk to. Mm-hmm. You got to sell like, hey, this is my plan on how I'm going to get you into the Stanley Cup final. Now, he's got to carry the load too.
Yeah.
You got to look at him and say, if I build this team, you better show up in the biggest games, because he hasn't done that in a lot of times throughout his career. So there's got to be honesty both ways. But that's what I'm pointing to is like you might have to go to him and say, we're going to have to retool. We got to get some picks. We got to get some prospects. I'm going to have to get our pro scouting going. We got to find some players that are out there that are going to come here and pop. And it's on him to accept it or not and be like, all right, I believe in that, and let's see where it takes us.